The Phoenix Suns have certainly had an interesting offseason, to say the least. They brought in Bradley Beal. They got rid of Chris Paul. They completely changed their roster, not only this offseason, but over the last 6 to 8 months since the Kevin Durant trade. And they've somehow managed to put a really, really good team together. And the reason that I say that with so much surprise is that one of the main purposes of the way they changed the rules, the way the new CBA is going to go into effect, not only this offseason, but the following, is it limits your ability to put together these fantastic super teams. And part of that, of course, is because of the second apron, which we talked about a ton on the channel already. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't understand the Bradley Beal trade at the time for Phoenix. And that trade definitely still has its flaws. But because of what they were able to do in free agency, which we're going to talk about throughout the video, Phoenix has actually managed to put together a really, really good team and honestly had one of the better free agency periods of any team around the league, given the amount of resources that they had available to bring in free agents. Now, to kind of set the stage for this, let's fully understand why this was going to be so difficult for them. So they bring in Bradley Beal to add to Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and then DeAndre Ayton. I had thought that maybe they would try and turn Ayton into a couple of wing players, a couple of guys they could guard and can shoot around their star, because generally speaking, you don't need to pay someone like DeAndre Ayton $32 million a year to play the 5 spot, to set screens, roll to the rim, rebound, and finish at the rim. And that's all they're going to ask DeAndre Ayton to do. They've got enough offense. They don't need post-ups from him. They don't need mid-range jumpers. They just need those 4 things. And it's pretty easy to find those 4 things really, really cheaply. And so if you can turn Ayton into some complementary perimeter players and then go out and find yourself a legitimate starting 5 in the free agency market, those things all would have made sense to me. However, they chose to go a different route, or probably more accurately, didn't like any of the offers that they had in exchange for DeAndre Ayton, because I don't think that his market is really all that much there right now. And so what they ended up doing is they kept their 4 guys together, bringing in Beal, and then all they did was target all of the right kind of players in free agency and have put together a team that suddenly looks very, very competent. To be clear, I still have major concerns not only about this team, but about the Beal trade in general, because Beal, Devin Booker, KD, all fantastic perimeter players, but Booker's the best playmaker amongst the 3 of them. And even though he's gotten much better throughout his career, and certainly compared to the player that he was in college, I wouldn't say that he's an elite playmaker by any means. And there's really no true lead guard amongst any of those 3 players. And that is still a concern for me, despite the incredible offensive talent as well as the spacing. Not to mention the fact that both Beal and Durant have not even been remotely close to durable over the last couple of seasons. However, now we have to talk about what's this impossible thing that they did. Well, they brought in all kinds of different free agents that are going to be absolutely perfect for this roster. First and foremost, let's talk about the biggest one, and that is Eric Gordon. Now, you might not think that Eric Gordon is that big of a deal. There's a reason that he was available. There's a reason that the Clippers basically waived him and cut him from the team. However, the fact that Phoenix, given their resources going into this offseason, was able to bring in someone in Eric Gordon that could very easily start and finish games for them is absolutely massive. He's going to be able to shoot the ball. He's bigger than you think he is. Like he's got wide shoulders, and he's really going to be able to help them a lot, just in terms of being a little bit of a bigger body than you would expect. Can't guard super well. He was better early on in his career, but he can at least give good effort. And having that extra little bit of offense on the floor in addition to spacing to start and finish games is going to be really important for them, again, especially given the fact they didn't really have a lot to be able to spend on him. They get him for the veteran minimum. And this Phoenix roster basically needs, obviously throughout the game, you're going to change up your lineup. You're going to need different guys that can guard and shoot. But really what they need is they need one guy. They need one guy that they can start and finish games with, that can guard a little bit and can shoot the ball and is not going to get in the way of the other guys. Because if they have that, their core 4 group of players, even though there's going to be some issues in terms of the lead playmaker, responsibilities in the backcourt and the front court between KD, Booker, and Beal, realistically, it's still going to be a really good lineup with those 4 guys out there. They need one guy. And Eric Gordon, with the veteran minimum, could very easily be that guy. But he's not the only one. They've got some other guys they brought in this offseason as well. Yuta Watanabe, who he comes over from Brooklyn. KD is familiar with him. There was a stretch last year where he was the best shooter in the entire league. He just was. He cooled off throughout the year, but at one point I think he was shooting like 60+% on corner 3-pointers. Like, he's a really, really good shooter. He's pretty tall. He can do some things occasionally, attacking closeouts and things like that, but spacing and slightly bigger wing players even if they're not outstanding defensively, is exactly what this Phoenix roster needs. And again, a guy that they were able to bring in on a minimum contract. And I think one of the reasons they were so successful bringing in players like Gordon and Watanabe that could have gotten, decent contracts elsewhere is because there's going to be a lot of minutes available. Outside of those core four guys, players around the league understand that there's opportunity here. There's opportunity to earn minutes, and there's opportunity to earn a bigger contract next year and moving forward beyond that. And that, I think, is one of the main reasons they were able to be so successful. We're not even close to the amount of players they brought in that I actually really, really like. We also have to talk about Keita Bates-Diop, someone that I think shot 39% from three last season, is improved as a floor spacer, and brings a ranginess and an athleticism and a skill set to this team that's really difficult to find in general, much less with a minimum contract deal. And again, they just need one guy, and every player that I've named so far in this video, Gordon, Watanabe, Keita Bates-Diop, I think those are going to be their primary options in terms of new guys that they brought in to be that fifth player. And you can say what you want during the regular season about how you're going to get through games, but if these four guys are healthy and they find one more player to start and finish games, they're going to be a real and a legitimate threat in the Western Conference, and Keita Bates-Diop just adds to that. Now, they also interestingly let Jacques Landale go. He signs a 4-year, $32 million contract in Houston. Maybe they just let him go because they knew that they couldn't match that deal and they wanted him to go out and get that contract. I'm not really sure. But they bring in some players in the front court like Chimezie Metu, who I really like. He's had some good moments, especially in the G League and in the Summer League. Drew Eubanks is also a pretty solid front court player as well. But then to add on to this, they were able to re-sign some of their own guys that are going to be critical to this roster. You've got Campaign, you've got Damian Lee. Those guys are fine. Josh Okogie kind of had some moments there with Phoenix last year, and he ended up getting pushed out of the rotation as they went back to some of the guys that they really, really knew could play. But Josh Okogie can guard. He gives great effort, and he started to shoot the ball better last year with Phoenix. He, and in addition to Watanabe, Eric Gordon, and Keita Bates-Diop, I think those four guys, they're going to cycle through them throughout the year, see who feels comfortable with those other four guys. One of them is going to be that fifth player, and again, they only need one of them. But the reason that all of this is important, the reason that I've spent 5 minutes talking about Eric Gordon, Yuta Watanabe, and Keita Bates-Diop, and all these other guys, is I didn't imagine this being a possibility. The whole point of the second apron is you can have your stars, you can still spend a ton of money, but once you do it, your ability to build a competitive team outside of those players is going to be more limited than it's ever been in the history of the league. No mid-level exception. You're limited in terms of what trades you can make. You're limited in terms of what picks you can make. And Phoenix still found a way to bring in a ton of guys that I think are really going to be able to help them and have put together a really solid 9 or 10 man rotation. I'm not saying that they should be favorites in the West or anything, and I still have concerns, which I outlined earlier in the video, but this is about as good as you could expect Phoenix to do this offseason relative to the resources that they had available to them after they made the Beal trade, and I cannot wait to see what this team looks like when the season gets started. And ultimately, the Suns season is going to come down to how those stars mesh together, how Ayton fills that role that they need him to, and how healthy they are. But it's still very impressive that they were able to do what they were this offseason.